Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernadette. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Negro. I'm the principal of Sacred Heart College. So thank you for joining this conversation. I'll just allow Catherine to introduce herself. Catherine Lockhart. Catherine, jump in.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Lockhart, and I'm the principal of Kardinia International College here in Geelong as well. And just in case you don't know much about our college, we are a K-12 with early years as well, co-educational school settled here in Geelong.
Thank you. Excellent. And sorry, I didn't say anything about Sacred Heart. We are celebrating our 160th anniversary, not the year that you want to be celebrating, because our celebrations were curtailed by COVID-19. But not to worry, one of the oldest secondary schools here in Geelong. As always, we start any meeting with an acknowledgement of the traditional owners. And what I will do is share my screen so you can actually see the words that I'm going to speak in just a moment. And let me just get this happening for you. Excellent. So if you take a moment just to settle your own thoughts, clear your mind. Okay, I acknowledge that we are meeting on the land for which the Wadawurrung people and their ancestors have been custodians for many centuries and on which they have performed age-old ceremonies. May we listen to your heart whisper within this land, our families and in our beings, calling us to be people of love and right relationships with our planet, other people and ourselves. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I moved too far. Let me try and escape from here. Now I'm having trouble unsharing my screen. Don't you love technology? Once again, thank you for joining in. Please be aware that notes are being taken. This is being recorded and you will be encouraged to share via the chat function. If I can share my screen again with you, just very quickly, just to give you the expected outcomes of our conversation, and then we can launch into the conversation itself. So now I should be sharing my screen.
Yeah, it's there, Anna.
Okay, thank you. So let me get a full screen happening so that will look a little bit better for us. So our intention with the conversation is to give you a context of Education 4.0. We do hope to engage in a discussion, and there will be prompts from the August Stakeholder Roundtable forum that took place, then the open discussion from there, and then your task. At the end of all of this, we're asking you to identify the preferred future via the Zoom chat function. So we'll talk you through that process. That initially what we're going to do is to work through giving you some information about Education 4.0, and then from there move to the discussion. So in relation to that, sorry, I'm moving from one screen to the other. I should be probably a little bit more savvy in doing this now. So from here, the context. So what are the changes envisaged for education in the future, and how have these been reinforced by our COVID-19 experience? So I thought just very quickly, if I could give you some home truths about education in light of COVID-19 and in light of the work that we've been doing for some time in trying to reimagine what education should look like. So home truths. First, home truth. We live in a world that is constantly and rapidly changing, and it's unpredictable. Therefore, there's no one subject or set of subjects that will serve our young people for the foreseeable future, let alone for the rest of their lives. Truth number two, there is one real competitive skill, and that is learning how to learn. In education circles, we talk about metacognition. The purpose of school now is to engender and reinforce an appetite for learning so that our young people really do need to want to have a thirst for learning and want to continue learning more and to see it as a continuous journey right throughout their lives. And I always say we never arrive. What we do know is we can't train students to sit, listen, behave, await instructions and call this 21st century education, because it's not. And the other truth that we've discovered at this point in time is that deep learning happens when you allow students to tap into a broad range of capabilities, not just teaching students to absorb and recall knowledge and facts. Our young people learn best when their learning is connected to the real world and takes them beyond their classroom and focuses on real world problems and opportunities. Real learning happens for our young people when it's not siloed. And I think if you think back to your own experience, your experience would have been of doing subjects in a silo. But when you're in the world of work, nothing is siloed, things are connected. So there's a disconnect there in what students experience at school and then what the real world of work looks like. So what we seek to do is create transdisciplinary opportunities for our students and encourage them to step out of their comfort zone and to actually fail, because once again, that's where the learning will happen. For those of you that are more traditional in your approach, I do need to reinforce we haven't abandoned the traditional disciplines, but instead we've reimagined them. So in light of all of that, what does Education 4.0 look like? It's personalised so that students choose what they learn when they're ready rather than because of their chronological age. The learning they engage in over time provides them with a bank of experiences so they're not repeating 1 year 6 times. And our end goal is to create highly capable learners who are self-motivated, who can self-manage, who are able to self-modify and can self-monitor. So the key elements of an education system that does that, or the key elements of Education 4.0. Element number 1, learning partnerships. Students and teachers creatively find ways to partner with others across schools, across countries, with parents, with experts, and with the community. This way, we reframe learning by connecting learners to authentic opportunities locally, nationally, and globally. Element number 2, the learning environment. Within that, we've got a culture of learning, or creating a culture of learning that cultivates energy, curiosity, creativity, imagination, and innovation, where students feel safe to take risks. For this to happen, students need to feel that they belong, every voice matters, they are shown empathy, and learning is structured so that they feel they are competent learners. Within that learning environment, we have to create a physical space that allows them to work in a transdisciplinary way. So we've got multi-dimensional spaces that offer flexibility. At Sacred Heart, we've got an innovation precinct, we've got a maker space, we've got a cafe, and we've got a space that reflects the WeWork collaborative spaces that you see dotted around Melbourne, and for that matter, dotted around the world. Element number 3 is leveraging digital technologies. If we're seeking or asking students to create and apply solutions to real world problems and opportunities, then we need to provide opportunities for collaboration, and technology is an excellent way of doing it, and we're modelling that today, and multimodal communication. And the last element is pedagogical practices. Educators are facilitators and curators of learning. They choose instructional strategies which most impact, or which provide most impact, and they curate learning opportunities. So what does this look like? I thought it easier to show you, and once again I will go to sharing my screen and working off my PowerPoint, so bear with me as I share my screen with you. If I could find my gosh, sorry folks. Always a pause for thinking time, which may assist. So, in terms of examples, I've provided 3 examples. One of those examples refers to the Bradbury Club. And the Bradbury Club is a unique collective group of students, staff, academics and industrial professionals that perform long-term problem-solving projects that benefit the community. It includes students and staff, plus partner organisations, including University of Sydney, Melbourne, Deakin, the Garvan Institute, EnviroLab, Healthy Communities Geelong and the Australian Bureau of Statistics. These partners provide professional mentorship and guidance towards outcomes that benefit our students and the greater community. In the Bradbury Club, subject areas are never mentioned. Instead, there is a problem to solve and whatever is needed to be done to solve the problem is done, regardless of the discipline area. Academics and industry professionals are engaged to provide expert mentorship and professional attitude. The goal is to achieve tangible outcomes, and this may include journal publications, it might be community action, it might be news articles, or it might be outreach work. This approach to learning is collaborative in 2 senses. Firstly, learning comes from expert academics and professionals, and then secondly, the group work together as a club, like a sporting team consisting of students of varying ages. There are staff and they're not necessarily teaching staff, parents, academics and the industry experts. And then what I've done is just put a sample of the projects that that group has worked on so far. And you'll see they're varied and broad. They require multiple skill sets and they draw in information from a variety of different disciplines. All of them engage the girls with professionals and they do have an end product, and you will see there was a research report which I've just included the front page and that was presented to the City of Greater Geelong. So real purpose in what they're doing. The second example I can give you is our makerspace and I'm hoping I can get this to work because it doesn't seem to be playing. Oops. Are you getting sound?
No.
Not yet? I may have to let that one go, unfortunately, in that I can't get the sound to occur there, maybe if there's time at the end. The makerspace is equipped with equipment that enables the girls to design and to create. So the idea is to come up with an idea and then through experimentation actually create it. And they're assisted in doing that by experts in that maker space. So once again, bringing experts into the space to work with the students. And then the last example that I have for you is looking at a project that our girls engaged in, and this is with CSIRO. And with this particular project, the girls were able to join with Dr. Melanie Thompson on a project that explored how to reduce the drag on ship hulls in order to reduce emission levels produced by container ships bringing imports into Australia. This work culminated in an artwork, so you can see the artwork there, and that's displayed in the Cranbourne Gallery. But the learning that came out of this was the environmental impact and the need to make ethical, environmentally sound choices when purchasing products that are produced overseas. All three projects signal what learning looks like. It's practical, it's collaborative, it requires the integration of skill and knowledge from across a range of disciplines, and it is used to solve real world problems. So a snapshot of what Education 4.0 looks like. Now I'll hand over to Catherine to give her take on it. Thanks, Catherine, and I'll stop screen sharing.
Thanks, Anna. And you will find quite a few similar themes between what I've got to talk about and what Anna has already spoken about. So firstly, I think that COVID-19 and the impacts have jolted us out of any sense of complacency that things will continue to be the same. And I think they've done that for our students as well. For our young people, it has brought into a sharp focus that crises can occur and that you can make all the plans in the world and things have things mapped out for you, and that can all turn around and change in an instant. Before COVID, we could have tried to tell students that. We talked about students needing to be adaptable and flexible, but it really wasn't part of it wasn't front and centre in their world, and I think COVID has changed that. I think it's also made our students very aware of the impact of globalisation. For the first time for many of them, something that began somewhere else in the world has had an impact directly on them. So it's not about, oh, there's some people somewhere that have suffered through an earthquake or this has happened or whatever. It's what happened has directly impacted on them, and they have been able to see how closely connected our world is. So I think my first question around Education 4.0 is how do we capitalise on this crisis? I think it was Churchill who said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So we could have told our students until we were blue in the face that they needed to be adaptable and flexible, that critical and creative thinking are important in the jobs of the future. But they have seen in real time through this crisis how agile businesses have had to have been to survive. And I think that's something that we really need to remind them of, have them reflect on, share case studies, have business people come in and talk with our students and let them know about the sorts of things they had to do to remain viable in this really challenging environment. I think it's wonderful that students have had to see how people, their parents as well, have been adapting to the unknown in a very short time. I think something that is really important as well is that they have seen adults failing. They have seen us in real time, their teachers not quite getting the technology right, having to ask for help. Sorry, and I didn't say that, but it's so true. And we have to embrace that, and our students are seeing that. They're not seeing the perfect product and thinking that's what everything's about. So again, how do we capitalise on that and really share that idea of it's okay if things don't go right the first time? Understanding an iterative process and building on products, I think, is really important. So I think there's never been a better time to reinforce with our students the sorts of attributes that they are going to need in the future. There has been a lot of discussion about STEM and STEAM subjects, and the recent decision by the federal government to give cheaper university places for STEM subjects is front and centre for some of our students. I personally have a huge problem with that. I think that absolutely the STEM and STEAM areas are really, really important. And I think that, again, Australia is now seeing how can we go back to manufacturing and producing our own goods and services, how many companies have turned around and started building different things than what they were building before. We do need engineers and chemists and scientists, and we need people to want to go into those spaces. But I have a real concern that if we don't address it soon, that we will upset the balance again. I believe that we can't have a generation of people who just think logically and reason with logic and reason, but can't employ empathy or communicate well or think critically or creatively. So I don't think that needs to be one or the other. I think we need to really blend them. There's a great article that came out in September by Tim Wise, who discussed the importance of not just STEM, but of MESH. MESH being media literacy, ethics, sociology, and history education. And in Education 4.0, I hope that we can see a greater level of interdisciplinary sharing. I think Anna really highlighted that beautifully with the case studies that she showed from her school. Students that can get opportunities to work across disciplines and understand how the various disciplines work together and are not compartmentalised. Again, sharing case studies, having students see real life situations, real problems where science and ethics and sociology and history and mathematics all need to be brought together to solve problems. Finally, in terms of educating for greater globalisation, I think the opportunities which technology have presented us mean we can now collaborate and communicate globally so easily. At our college, we normally have exchanges to Japan each year. Clearly, they weren't able to go ahead. But what we've done instead is we've been exchanging virtually. So with our sister school in Gatemba Nishi, our students have been virtual pen pals. They've been teaching English to the Japanese students, and the Japanese students have been teaching Japanese to them. And it's become part of what they do on a weekly basis now. There are so many opportunities for cross-cultural exchange without having to fly anywhere. So again, I think that those kind of opportunities we really need to seize upon in Education 4.0. That was pretty much my take on things, and I'm really interested to hear from the people on the forum about what you think about Education 4.0 and where are we heading and what do we need to do to get there.
So at this point, if I just share with the group the prompts that came out of the August stakeholder meeting, and then from there some questions and thinking time in terms of where to from here. So as I said, key points that were raised by the August stakeholder roundtable included lifting our G21 region Year 12 completion rates. Is this the question? Is it always the right question? How do we educate for increasing globalisation? How do we ensure our young people are equipped for STEM or STEAM? But you'll notice both Catherine and I didn't really use those terms. I know Catherine referred to them, but asked for a broader view. We don't use the language as much at Sacred Heart because it's beyond the disciplines that are listed there. It is that transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary learning that we're looking at. So how important is creativity, critical thinking to our future? So that's what came out of the stakeholder meeting. So now, as we said, over to the group. In light of what we have said, what questions do you have? Let's start the conversation.
We will call on people if people don't speak up.
Yes, we will.
I'm going to jump in because this is my first one apart from the opening webinar, so I'll plead ignorance about some of the other conversations during the week. But the very first webinar held talked about these issues around, you know, what are we actually trying to train people to have as they enter into a fairly unknown circumstance in terms of work, and talking about creativity and critical thinking. And there was a discussion, and I don't know if this is the best way to put it, but there was a discussion about tertiary education. So if you're doing this fantastic job at secondary school where you've got, you know, enabled learners, critical thinkers, creative thinkers, and then for what it's worth, they want to look at further study. My question is, how are we integrating, you know, the work that you're doing into those next steps when we have a federal government looking at, and I wouldn't know quite the word other than making humanities degrees twice the cost. So it's more of a question around how you talk to your students about those transitions.
Catherine, do you want to speak first, or will I? Whatever way.
I'm happy to speak on it. I don't have an answer. I think that what we need to talk to our students about is the attributes that they're going to have. And it's interesting about the Year 12 completion rate, and at our school that isn't a problem, but I understand it is a problem for many schools in the G21 region. But if we only are focusing on ATAR, it's really hard to try and get kids to stay at school when it's a very academic number that they are trying to get for what reason. So I think that making schools places where students can see what the work that they're putting in, how it has real life applications, how it can develop for them, that it's not just about tertiary learning either, that there are lots of other opportunities for students, I think is really, really important. And I also question that the tertiary sector is talking about students with these attributes, and yet it doesn't fit well with trying to get an ATAR. So it is a big gap that we need to jump over.
And if I can jump in, I would argue that some of the work that we're doing or have started to do is blurring the lines between what students are exposed to at university and secondary school, and bringing that tertiary space into our space, and we move into that tertiary space as well. So some of the projects that I've mentioned for the Bradbury Club, they are actually conducted on site at Deakin. In their cadet centre, so utilising the materials there. So the idea is to blur the lines. So we blur the lines between what happens at secondary and tertiary. We blur the lines with what happens in industries and in workplaces, so that the students can do, I don't know that it's a cadetship, internship of some descriptions. We start to blur the lines. So the question about an ATAR, getting a score, what subjects do I need to do, or what disciplines am I going to pursue at university, become a moot point. So the reality, well, I don't know. You like to try and predict the future. The idea of credentialing, the idea of young people no longer spending 4 years at university to do a particular course, and instead get into the workforce, work out, or someone will tell them what they need, and then the credentialing. I need to do some more work on technology and getting my head around how to use it more effectively. So that's what I would end up going and doing, the credentialing for that. And once again, once I've done that, what else do I now need to master? And gradually building, it's not a degree, it's capabilities in the spaces that I need those capabilities enhanced, and it will depend on the work that I'm doing. And I know that I'm not going to be in one job, as I have been for 30 plus years. That will be continuous, and that will change according to where I find myself, not only at a point in life, but also at a point in society and the global world. So I think we have to stop pigeonholing things and seeing things in silos. Secondary education isn't just secondary education. Tertiary education isn't just tertiary education. Work is not just work. We have to start to blur them and approach them differently, which is what we're trying to do.
Anna, we've just had a question from Cheryl about how important do you see work experience as a way to prepare students for the future? My answer to that would be that certainly not work experience like we had it when I was at school.
I wanted to jump in and say the same thing. If that's what it is, and it's a 2-week placement or a 1-week placement, it's an absolute waste of time. And therefore it serves no benefit or any purpose at all. However, if you could engage in a work agreement where it's a sort of internship conducted over the period of a year, and we take the learning that comes out of our remote learning. Youngsters can continue to access their schoolwork remotely in a time that suits them, but they're spending their day in their internship on site, and it's ongoing over an extended period of time. Then there's real benefit, and it will allow that young person to identify what they need further advancement in. It will give them hope of what the future might look like, and they're doing real work. So it complements whatever's happening in the school environment. Yeah,
I agree. I think exposure to businesses and workplaces and students having that opportunity to see what work looks like from various perspectives is important. Hearing from employers about what they're wanting from their employers of the future is really important as well. Having students, again, working with companies and things about giving them opportunities to solve real world problems that can be applied in the world. That's the sort of work experience that students want to be engaged in, not a 2-week placement or 1-week placement at getting the coffee for everybody.
Yeah. And our young people are highly capable. They many of them hold down part-time work, so they can assimilate into that environment. It's just that we've worked in silos, and until we start to break those silos down, we'll continue to find ourselves in the same space.
Can I just ask, do you see a benefit in giving students multiple opportunities to see a wide range of industries and employers throughout their schooling year?
I'll respond to that one, if that's okay, Catherine. Our students, I'm in the Sacred Heart mindset, our students spend 6 years in secondary education. So I would argue that we should be exposing them from an early age, and it's their readiness more so than their age. So they can have multiple experiences during their journey throughout that. At the moment, it's 6 years of secondary school, but it may look different. But they can have multiple journeys. And I also believe, not that you want youngsters to swap and change, because you do want the youngsters to commit to something. When or if they come to the realisation, this isn't for me, then some guided pathway into, then what have you learnt and where are you at now? What is it that appeals to you? And get them into that cycle of evaluating and reflecting on the learning and working out, what else do I need to fulfill my potential, and arm them with what they do need and support them. I think mentorships help in a great way there as well. And young people are energised when they encounter people who are passionate about a particular space or area, and it's contagious.
I would agree. Mim asked the question of what percentage of our students currently undertake work experience. As you said, I think a lot of students work, so they are getting that experience of the workplace environment. We don't run a work experience program as such anymore, and some of that is around work health and safety and all the sorts of rules and regulations that also make it very difficult for employers to enable students to undertake work experience. But at the same time, we have quite a few students who in their holidays and things will seek out opportunities. My own daughter was able to attend Melbourne University to do some astrophysics as a work experience in the holidays, and it was just opened her eyes to all the possibilities that were available to her. So I think there is greater scope to enable students to access to workplaces, access to tertiary institutions, and to let them explore. I think we underestimate what students can do. Just today I spoke with a Year 2 boy. They were inquiring about how their toys moved. and he had a wind-up mouse. He wound up and put it on the ground, and the wheels turned and the tail wagged. And I asked him, okay, so what do you think makes it move? He talked about forces, he talked about pressure, and then he said to me, and I think there's also something to do with friction. I think the less friction there is, the quicker it goes. This was a year 2 student. An open-ended inquiry that he was able to experience. So I think it will also open the minds of employees to what our students really are capable of and how they can be utilised in the future too.
Catherine, the other thing that we're trying to do, and to the group, sorry, I shouldn't just be referring to Catherine, we, in terms of subjects, I teach legal studies at year 11. So one of the things that the students have been required to do is to engage in a mock trial. But they've engaged in that mock trial by working with a person from the Department of Public Prosecution. This year we had to do it via Zoom, but they zoomed into the classroom space, if you want to call it that, and they worked with the prosecution team. We had a solicitor working with the defence team, and once again zoomed in using technology. In the past we've had them physically come on site, and where in the past we've taken them to the county court here in Geelong, and we have had a magistrate sit in that courtroom as the judge. We had a criminal barrister from Melbourne zoom in and play that role. So youngsters who were thinking of that as a career pathway were given a taste of that. And then the connections with the Department of Public Prosecution and an open invitation to journey out there and spend some time there. The person who played the role of judge, an open invitation to the students to come to Melbourne and to experience what happens in the courtroom and to gain some advice, mentorship in that space if that's what they're willing to pursue. So that question of, once again, that 1 week work experience, we don't need that anymore. It looks very, very different. And what we do need is for businesses and professions to be open to either coming into our space electronically or physically when we're allowed, and our students going into that space. And I reinforce remote learning has shown us that the youngsters can catch up on the subjects that they may be missing in that particular time because they're highly capable and competent and can self-manage.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's interesting with COVID, and our parents spoke to me about this, is how having to be working from home and having their kids working from home, their children have actually seen what their parents' work life is like as well. They've heard mum or dad in a meeting. They've heard someone trying to manage 5 kids behind the screen, and they've been asking questions as well about what their parents are doing. So that's exposed them to a different aspect of the work balance as well. But Carly, in answer to Carly's question, and I think through the Committee for Geelong and people like the Geelong Chamber of Commerce, I've mentioned that's getting mentors, people from work places who are willing to come in and talk with students and work with them is a great way that we can get access to lots and lots of students. I grew up in a small country town in New South Wales, and I knew about teaching. I knew people were in the police force. I knew I didn't want to go and work in a coal mine. But that were pretty much the only experiences I was exposed to in terms of jobs. There are so many out there. So people who are doing different and interesting jobs, and those sort of 100 jobs of the future, if we can get people coming in and working with our students across the Geelong region, that would be fantastic.
I noticed Min has her hand up. Maybe not deliberately.
I had it up. It was
Thank you.
in reference to your responses to my question, and Carly actually already clarified a link to yesterday's conversation. So, and then subsequently I had another thought which I wanted to share, actually to do with your school, Anna, coming from the Geelong Tech School and working with your year 9, 10 students with David Campbell. I've actually provided that link with volunteers from Ford. We've had them come in to have your students present their smart mobility devices for the mobility issues we're going to face in the future and what could be created. And yeah, we had the Ford employees come in, and this was pre-COVID. They came in and the students presented to them, but we gave them an opportunity to then ask those Ford employees questions about their pathways. One of them was an engineer who actually had also studied arts and had also studied history and language, and she talked about that and how that linked really well. And so that was a really wonderful example of how it's not just STEAM that gets you places. You need to have a diverse set of interests, and I'm looking forward to doing that again in a few weeks' time, because we're running the last mile again with David. So
they're great experiences, and for those of you that haven't been in schools for a long time, it's almost like throwing away the textbook and bringing real world, real life, real experts into the space, and that's what we need to be able to do. And we need, as I said, businesses and the universities have been great. It's having that willingness to work with us and the students, so that we really do reimagine, reinvent what learning looks like, and it's hands-on and it's real, and they're working with experts, can have immediate assistance or guidance, and that keeps our youngsters engaged. It excites them. It gives them purpose, and I think they're all the things that we all want. Not just our young people, but even as adults. Any more hands up? Any more questions?
Anna and Catherine, I was just going to ask the question about our workforce and our ability of our workforce across our education sector, and what development our workforce needs to operate very differently. Because I think, I'm not sure whether it was either Catherine or Anna that you talked about, well, our experiences were a siloed experience, and then we'll have a number of people who've grown up through that siloed experience. So what's the investment we need to make sure that our workforce is also able to grasp what is essentially a very exciting future?
I think they need to be open-minded. I think they need to be prepared to invest in this. I think that's what we're looking for. It's about a future, and we all need to invest in it. So there has to be that notion of paying it forward and being prepared to work with our young people.
Yeah, I think listening to our young people as well.
Anna, it's Ryan here. I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Pat.
I'm not jumping the queue. I just wondered, just on the point that's been discussed, whether or not it's true to say that, I mean, historically, I think people choose an employer as much as they chose an industry, and possibly, you know, to a large extent, that employer might have managed the post-education development and learning of that employee, and maybe that's why people stayed longer in industry, in certain businesses. But are we seeing younger people taking a bit more control and responsibility of their own sort of learning, and sort of be more prepared to move from company to company to gather those broader experiences and progress, and I think that's an opportunity for businesses to attract those people who are looking, you know, to move on and to have greater experiences. Is that a fair summary? Or
yeah, I'd agree with you, Pat. I do believe our young people are quite astute. I believe that they can target what they would like at a particular point in time, and they'll pursue that. And then once they've achieved that, they'll be looking for the next thing. And that may not be in the same organisation. And there has to be that readiness to say either, yes, we can in this organisation help you develop that skill and create that opportunity, or the readiness to say, yep, okay, you're ready, yep, move on. We'll support you moving on to another role, and even helping facilitate that. I know that may not be the way that workplaces have operated in the past, but I think that's the sort of thinking that we now require. I keep saying we're building a future, so we want to be able to help our young people do that. And I want confidence in the future because I won't be doing this job forever. So you'd like to think that our young people will be supported, and it's not so much about the particular workplace or the industry, but it is supporting our young people to create whatever is coming next. And giving them a hand up in doing that, and not holding them back in a workplace because it benefits that workplace. That's probably harsh, but yeah, allowing them to fly.
I guess if somebody is proactive about their own learning, then they will continue to look for opportunities both within and outside of their current employer.
Yes, they will.
Yeah, and I think that's where the best employees can provide the best of their companies to the best of that's available, and that they can become a workplace of choice, I guess, for people looking for advancement.
Yes. Yeah, and Pat, that would work. If that's the sort of approach that places do take, workplaces take, then that will work, and we will keep our young people engaged. And the idea of heading off to other places, I know travel is restricted at the moment, but they may not necessarily want to stay overseas for a period of time. They'll come back with even broader skills. But I know employing people and hiring people comes at a cost. So you don't want to continue having to hire new people. But once again, it requires a different mindset and a different way of looking at it.
Can I jump in as well?
Yes, Jude.
I'd like to just talk about two different pieces of data. A study done recently by Melbourne University looked at the hidden group that have not only disengaged from education. Their estimate is that at any one time up to 50,000 young people are completely detached from education. Now that's a fairly damning indictment of the system as far as I'm concerned. The other piece of data is that the World Economic Forum has estimated that by 2030, 3 billion people are going to need to be reskilled to take up the work of the future. So we're starting to see happy chaos entering the education system, where we can no longer afford to have a 19th century education system working in a 21st century labour market.
Okay.
And I think if we could convince governments that the existing education system simply doesn't apply anymore, we need to think about completely new ways of doing it. And listening to the comments today around engaging with workplaces, with key stakeholders, the idea of learning circles where communities get together and they identify with their young people and their adults who are needing to be reskilled as well. What sort of things are they going to need and what would they like to do? So we can't just talk about what the labour market needs. We need to talk about meeting people's aspirations as well. And I can see in the future having young people in classes or in workshops with adults, where the young people and the adults are helping to teach each other as well as learning from other people, where the excitement can build and people can experiment with entirely different ways of doing work itself. But the blocker, from my point of view, is government. They have so much money invested in the existing education system that to pull it down and start again is almost impossible. So I guess my question, without preempting your point about what our preferred future is how do we engage all the relevant stakeholders in some really meaningful, deep conversations around the future of work and the future of education?
Jude, you're right in the summary, and yes, we need the government to come on board. I think at the moment what I'm seeing is that there are associations being developed that are pushing for a different, pushing for education 4.0. So I know Sacred Heart is part of the Future Schools Alliance, and they've got schools all across Australia involved and overseas as well. So we've got this steady push coming from the bottom up. How long will it take? I don't know. But it's not stopping us from doing it, and it's not stopping us from then sharing what we're doing. And that's how you start to build that groundswell. And hopefully, as that gets bigger and bigger, people will have to stop and listen. And when they see young people being successful in this space, I think they have to stop and listen. The score at the end of 6 years of education doesn't say anything about a youngster's capabilities, nothing at all, apart from the fact that they can sit an exam and retain information, which isn't a skill that's highly valued at the moment.
I couldn't agree more. I'm conscious of the time, Anna, so we've got 5 minutes to try and get the task done. We've got a job for everybody.
You ask if I can, in my sharing the screen, this is your task, folks. You've heard a lot from us. Hopefully we haven't thrown too much at you. It's hard in this space because it's so much nicer when you're in person. But anyway, using the Zoom chat function, which you can access if you hit participants, and you'll see the chat come up on the side of your screen. We need you to actually identify, in light of what you have heard, what is your preferred future. And at the moment, we've got 3 things listed there: successful transition for secondary school, developing our young people to engage at the global level, equipping our young people with, I'd remove the STEAM and STEM. It's that interdisciplinary work, whatever that looks like. I'm taking liberties there. And the next bit, once you've chosen, what makes you say that? So that we've got some of your thinking captured. So are people comfortable in doing that? And I suppose my other question is there a preferred future that isn't listed there that we should have listed? Need to see if I've got any hands up.
We need writing music.
I know. Given I couldn't get my video to work, I'm not even going to attempt to do that.
I might just jump in if that's all right, because I did type something. Whenever anyone talks about government and blockages, I'm always like, I'm there. So my question is, with COVID and all the working from home and the use of technology through education, how has the Department of Education seen that as a catalytic kind of circuit breaker type event that may get them to rethink the way we not just use technology, but learn? I mean, it's a big question, but I haven't been in the middle of it. You guys have. None of my kids, they're all, uni older. So I was just wondering, do you think when we're talking about blockages and change, do you think this is a big time to have that conversation?
It's a great time to have the conversation in light of the learnings that have come out of remote learning. And I'm not sure about Catherine, but I know that we're looking at what can we offer the girls, what choice can we offer our girls in terms of the subjects that they're choosing to do? Do we offer some of them as remote learning experiences? Are we going to blend the delivery methods so that we have some of the face-to-face and some of the remote learning? And we are offering some subjects next year in that way. Both Catherine and I aren't at department schools, so it makes it hard to say what's the education department doing. We've probably got a little bit more autonomy So we know what we're doing. Catherine?
Yeah, I would agree. And I've actually just posted out to my staff today asking them what can we do more of, what can we stop doing, what can we amplify as a result of the COVID crisis. So we are certainly looking at that. What we don't want to do is just go back to the way things were.
And like Catherine, we've sent out a quick survey to our parents. We're surveying our girls. We have the staff working on a Google Doc providing information in terms of what are the learnings and what are the implications of that learning for our future. But as I said, we've got a bit of autonomy. Both Catherine and I have a bit of autonomy. I'm not sure that our state education school principals have the same level of autonomy. How's that chat function going? Have people been able to identify a preferred future?
Cheryl's written one for equipping young people with interdisciplinary experiences that acknowledge their membership of a global community. I love it, Cheryl. It's a great way of putting it.
We need more. And we've got a few more minutes. 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes.
As people are writing, Anna, would you like to, I'm just thinking if we stop sharing your screen and we'll be able to say goodbye to people then as we go off, if that's okay. Yeah, there we go. I can hear some people typing away.
Excellent.
I think I feel like you've presented us with there is an exciting future. As Jude has said, we do have a real challenge to bring the relevant stakeholders beyond Geelong into the conversation. But thinking about a recent conversation I did have with a senior bureaucrat who when we talked change, he's talked about, well, of course we'll change when you all say that we need to change, which I thought was terribly cynical, but just the same. It probably puts the challenge for us to say we do want change and we want support for that change across the board. And I think from this, I've scribbled down a lot of things that we could probably do very locally across the G21 region to really push that change forward.
That's exciting, Bernadette. Okay, do we have, we've got a number of preferred futures. We need more.
I'd just like to acknowledge Phil as well. I know that Phil's doing great work in this space at his school and across Geelong. So there's a lot of like-minded people out there that are moving towards this, regardless of whether the bureaucrats and the blockages are there. I think it will continue.
Yeah, and thanks, Catherine. Just to say hi to everyone. My point, rather than jumping in and all around this, I've probably got my mind on a presentation a little bit later in the day, but that there are plenty of opportunities for systems in Geelong to move forward, regardless of what government do say or think that they're preparing for in education, and in commentary to what the state schools are doing and the degree of autonomy. I think we've got autonomy if we choose to have it, which sometimes to make progress you have to bend or break rules.
Quite true.
Beautiful. We've got to our 1:30. We've just past 1:30, and we've got a few coming through. Anna and Catherine, thank you very much for today's conversation, and thank you everyone for being part of that conversation. It certainly yielded us some rich thinking to do. We'll save the chat, and I'll just hand back to you two to close us out, I think.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity, Anna.
And thank you, Catherine, for joining with me. And also, I think the really important point to make is our young people are highly capable, and there is a great future ahead, and we should take some comfort in knowing that the world is in good hands. Yeah, thank you for allowing us to share our passion, which is education, and good luck with the work that is being done. It's heartening to know that people are banding together and looking at how we can create the sort of future that we would like for our young people. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Catherine. Bye.
See you, Mark.
Thanks, Anna. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you, Catherine.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Catherine.
Not too far away. Thanks, Bernadette. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Anna.
Take care. See
You
Bye,
too.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you. There we go. Okay. Thanks, guys. Oops. You're on mute, Jen.
Sorry, I've got my daughter on the phone in the background. I'm going to write a note to Liz. I know this is not what we're talking about, but we've got a meeting at 2. Are you going to that?
Yeah, I am.
I need a break.
I'll tell Liz. Don't worry about Liz.
I was just about to email her because I've been in meetings on Zoom since 8. Like no break. So I have to just get a break.
Yeah, I can share with you what I'm going to report anyway.
Good. Well, is that okay? Can you just tell Liz that I'm like losing my mind and I will be of zero benefit in that
I will
meeting.
do that. The only thing, one of the things I will be talking about, I can stop. Yeah, we've got to stop recording.
Oh, yes. I'll do that if I can. There we go.